gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?
Make Your Beauty Right podcast is a daily, unfiltered, no-holds-barrier look into the world of personal branding, beauty, leadership, and life as a creative entrepreneur. I'm your host, Londyn Nikole, image and personal branding strategist. And my goal is to give you life to the worries that all of us face day after day, struggling to fulfill our purpose and to create a glamorous legacy. In this Laugh Out Loud podcast, me and my guests will be discussing the best ways to make up your mind, monetize that brand, glam up your image like a boss, and how you can stay motivated in a world full of distractions. Your unfiltered beauty experience starts now. You are now listening to Make Your Beauty Mark podcast. Hey, gorgeous. Happy Tuesday. For us, it is Takeover Tuesday. Today is, what is it? Tuesday. I just said it's Tuesday, July the 13th, 2021. I hope you are having such a dope, glamorous day. Listen, it is so much to talk about today. I had to add my little music in the background so you guys can stay motivated. So it's so much to talk about today. So can we just get right into it? So like I said, you guys know already, July is all about turning up the heat in your personal brands. So in this episode, I don't know if did I even announce it? No, I didn't even announce it. But today's episode is going to be called Transitioning Yourself, #shifts. And I actually got that from one of my really close girlfriends. I was just talking to her and we were talking about shifting in your personal brands, and I'm going to get into her story soon. But again, like I said, it's Takeover Tuesday, and every Tuesday I have to shout somebody super bomb and super amazing out, which is my homegirl, Dionne. So if you guys don't know what Full Figure Fierce is, my homegirl started this whole movement behind it where she's really all about empowering women to love their bodies, to accept themselves. And so be sure to check them out. They're having their 10-year anniversary make sure I'm right because I don't like to say people's dates wrong, March the 19th, 2022. So be sure to sign up for that. Be sure to go to her Instagram, Full Figure Fierce, and check her out. Like I said, she's looking for vendors. If you have a retail store, if you have a fashion company, if you're a makeup artist and you're like, oh my God, I want to be a part of her 10-year anniversary, this huge fashion show, be sure to check her out. But like I said, I had to shout her out, and this whole thing is going to her. I'm actually recording this broadcast right now while I'm shooting live on Facebook. So shout out Facebook family for checking me out. So like I said, this podcast is it's all about transitioning yourself, #shift. And when me and her were sitting here talking earlier, she was saying how she's now transitioning her personal brand and she has to do all of these things to really start to stand out. And so, a really quick tip or tool that I usually do with all my clients, because remember, everything has a foundation. Every brand has a foundation, personal or business, right? And I was like, okay, well, tell me what you mean, or give me the people you're talking about, right? And she was like, oh, and she started to break down these people. And I was like, yeah, that's definitely a speaker. Definitely, I can see you that way. And so as we started to talk about certain stuff, we were getting into this whole piece. She said, like I said, I told you she's like a model trainer. She's dealing with these women that way. And she was talking about, we were talking about body positivity. I was talking about new stuff I was trying on. Why don't people, why aren't women still into shapewear and wearing shapewear? Because your clothes look so much better. And we were saying, however you start off, especially in your personal brand. Y'all know Ariel's in the show, every show, just heads up. Y'all already know. Shout out to all my boss mommies. But I was saying, we were saying, me and her were both saying, why don't we wear shapewear? And, like I said, we were saying all of that. But the biggest thing we were saying, how you start off is how you finish, right? And so if you decide to start off, especially as a model, and you're turning around and you're completely being half naked half of the time, or Right. That's what I just said. If you being half naked half the time, if you're half naked half the time, your audience is going to start to expect that from you. They're going to start to expect that every time you post and every time you show up, you're going to look like that. And then we got into clothing and pictures and makeup, and it's the same way. If you're always showing up super glamorous, super fierce, super decked out, and now you're afraid to actually show up online because you're like, I don't look the same way in my pictures, this is what we're talking about. However you're showing up, you have to keep it up. Now, in her particular case, we're talking about transitioning your brands. So if you're saying, hey, Londyn, I was a makeup artist before, I can identify, or you're saying, hey, I used to do this thing and now I want to transition my personal brand, how am I going to do that? That's where your marketing comes into play, people. But seriously, that's where your marketing comes into play and your story comes into play. And that's why it's so important as a personal brand. You have to have a story. You have to know what's up. Like when I say know what's up, like you have to be honest about your transition and you have to be honest about where you want to go and where you want to take people. So again, I only can speak for myself. I started off doing makeup. I was doing celebrity makeup, and that was never like the thing I wanted to do. I was just like, hey, I'm great at it. It was a thing for myself. It was a personal development tool that I used for myself, right? And so I kind of got into it because I moved to New York City. I was extremely afraid of actually trying to pursue radio and TV in that market. Even though I had did radio before and I was just coming from it, I was extremely afraid, like really, really doing it. New York City, #1 market. You get where I'm going, right? Right. So I remember having PR people and working with these people. And while I had all of these great opportunities and I've worked with some amazing people and some amazing celebrities, I knew somewhere it wasn't authentic. I knew that it wasn't clicking for me, right? And so I was never completely fulfilled and I never was really happy. Like it was cool with what I was cool with what I was doing, and I liked doing makeup, but it was more like the behind the scenes, the photo shoot, that type of stuff, right? It wasn't the service of being like a makeup artist. And so now transitioning my brands, the story that I'm now telling and the way that I'm using it to transition my audience is saying, make up your lifestyle. So I'm still using the words makeup and I'm still trying to identify with the past person my audience knew, right? Because if you're talking about transitioning your personal brand, we have to get into how does your audience know you now? What do they know about you now? Can we use keywords and phrases to bring people in your story and to tell that story a different way, to change the conversation? You know how like you ever talking, like, come on, women, you know how you talking to a man and something, you know how you talking to a man or you're talking to your guy or your girlfriend and somebody says something that they don't want to talk about or you don't want to talk about it, you kind of transition the conversation, you know what I mean? You kind of slide it where you want to go. You kind of have to think about it that way with your personal brand. So versus trying to get online and tell my audience, well, y'all know I don't do makeup no more. Right, I still do it, but probably not in the same context they're used to me doing it in. So now I have to sit there and take a different marketing approach. So that's what I did. So now it's make up your lifestyle. So now I'm saying, okay, the same way you put blush on and foundation and eyeliner and all of these things to look good, you have to do the same way as a personal brand. And you guys hear me say it all the time. You have to think about it as like an athlete. It's their whole life. Politicians, it's their whole life. Music artists, it's their whole life. This is it. This is the job. So when you're signing up and you're saying I'm being a personal brand, speakers are great examples of that. That's their life. Whatever they're speaking about, it is their whole life. It's the book, it's the products, it's the t-shirts, it's the events. It is the same way as a personal brand. So you hear you in the background giving me my background vocals, right? She's giving me the background music. But it's the same way. And so when we were talking about shifting, that's what you really have to think about that. How can you shift from where you're at now to where you want to be? Because if not, you're gonna, well, let me back up because I was thinking two thoughts before I said it. Here's the reason I'm saying your story is great when you're trying to shift your personal brand. If you're not sure of the title you're using, that's usually where I feel like people kind of get lost. It's really the brand identity. So I feel like everybody's so caught up with marketing, which I'm down for marketing. Again, Ariel is giving me the background music. I'm so down for marketing. Marketing is like two arms, right? Your left arm of marketing has to be connected to the brand because marketing wants to know, like, what is it? What is it about? What's the mission? What we're down for? And then the other arm of your marketing, of course, is connected to your money, right? But here's the thing. Marketing is only going to work and great marketing is if they can identify what the brand is. So a lot of times when people aren't making the impact, making the money they want to make, or when you post a picture, when you post something and no one's saying anything, it's usually because you're probably not identifying yourself correctly. And that was one of the biggest things me and her were talking about today. I was like, well, what do you want to be known as? And so I went down the whole thing, like a life coach, at this to this. And so using people, and that's what she did as a great reference to kind of figure out where you're at, because those people have a foundation. If you watch them, if you study them, there was a foundation to what they're doing. There is it's a method to their madness of how they were able to monetize their brands and monetize their speaking and monetize their conferences. You know what I mean? It was a plan behind it. But the biggest thing I feel like is the brand identity. You have to know what you want to leverage. And I don't feel like what's being talked about enough in personal branding is strength. Because, what about if you're a great leader? What about if you're a great speaker? I know for me growing up, it was just one of those things like, oh, that person can just talk and this person is a great leader. You really wouldn't have thought it was a way to really monetize it. You wouldn't have thought like, oh my goodness, I can have a career from this. But now due to the internet, it's so many different possibilities for you to really expand your personal brand. So again, this episode was all about transitioning yourself and how can you do that. So if you're saying, hey, Londyn, I don't want to do this thing anymore, even though everybody knows me. Again, I only can speak for myself. Everybody knows me from doing makeup. Okay, how can we use that story and start to tell a different story? Start to tell people why you're not in this industry and why are you pivoting? Why are you turning? What happened? What did you lose your mojo? Did something happen? Did you have an epiphany? What was it for you? You know what I mean? So when you think about, again, today, transitioning your brands, or if you're marketing yourself, or if you're standing up, again, there's so many types of ways to title yourself. First thing is, remember, whatever you title yourself as, you have to do that thing. You're going to have to show up as that person. So if you're saying, hey, I'm a makeup artist, you actually have to do the makeup art, right? If you're saying I'm a hairstylist, you actually have to do the hair. If you're saying I'm a marketing person, you actually have to do that thing. So a lot of times, while titles are super great and it can make us feel good and it can give us status, the status isn't going to work if the thing you're supposed to do, you can't show up on game day as that. You know what I mean? When it's time to play, you can't play game. You know what I mean? You can't play in the game because all you did was get dressed for it. And so I know personally, especially, I'll say as an image consultant or a personal branding person, it's the ABCs with that is appearance, your behavior, your communication, your digital presence. And I feel like especially women, we get so caught up with how things look that we're not thinking it through as if you really can perform it. And that was the conversation me and her, like I said before, even I think 5 minutes into this podcast, I was saying the same thing. Like, you have to show up as that person. You know what I mean? Ariel is like going in today, y'all. It's one of those days. Have you ever had like one of those days where you're like, I need my kids to be great? And then as soon as you get on camera or as soon as you do something, they're like acting out, right? But I just had to stop and just pause and say that. But it's the same way. So however you start, come on. And I have to relate it to relationships, because you have a relationship with your audience. That's what you're asking for. You're asking for them to trust you. You're asking for them to depend on you. You're asking for them to listen to what you have to say. So it's a relationship. So however you start off, like I can imagine getting on broad. I can imagine going live and just looking completely crazy. I just couldn't. My audience would be like, Londyn, you lost. My audience, I promise you, I think my audience will probably inbox me and be like, are you having a mental health breakdown? Because we have never seen you show up that way. So especially as women, like, don't fall into the social pressure of you feeling like you have to be beat and this to show up. Because again, however you show up, you're going to have to finish. And I've seen it happen. I've had clients who came to me and was like, Londyn, first of all, don't tempt me with a good time when we talk about going shopping. But if you get into this whole, like, I want to wear the 3-inch heels, I want to wear the long hair. All right, boo-boo. If you really I know I said boo boo. I didn't need you to say boo boo, but boo boo. If you're going to sit here and wear this hair and this heels, can you perform in it? Can you get on stage? Can you take pictures? Can you walk in it? Because again, I've done shoots where I have dressed somebody. We did all of this shopping. We spent thousands of dollars. And then we got to the photo shoot. We couldn't even make it through look 2 because they couldn't wear the heels. And this is what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? Oh, I don't want to do my makeup every day. Well, then don't take overly glamorized photos. You can get your makeup done. You can have natural makeup without being overly glamorized. You know what I mean? So you have to really put that into play. You know what I mean? I don't tell my clients to show up as me. I don't tell you to make the same content as me. First of all, I live for content. So I can do this shit all day. This is game time. Like, me making content is not the issue, right? At all. But my goal is, with anybody I work with, is what do you want to do? How can you perform? How is it the best way you could communicate? So while my job is to be a strategist, it's very advisatory too, you know, because I work with politicians, athletes, music artists, spiritual people. So you have to perform it. You have to show up. Good days, bad days. Imagine your pastor saying, well, you know, today, y'all, I just don't know if I can. It don't work that way. Imagine if you went to McDonald's and they wasn't there. That's the part. This is the piece I feel like with personal branding people don't want to talk about. You have to show up. When my mom passed, this the same, my homegirl I just talked about, she lost a whole husband. I mean, I know a husband can't be half, but you know what I mean? She lost a whole husband. You know what I mean? Like, and she's still showing up all the time. And so again, how you start off with your audience is how they're expecting you to show up, how they're expecting you to finish. So if you have to, again, take some time today and say, hey, I really need to think about my personal brand. Because here's the thing, you may say, you know, shout out to one of my clients. You may say, hey, Londyn, I don't want to build a brand for myself, quote unquote, yet. We went from, I think when I worked with this one person, we just changing her title. She was doing the same, similar to the same job, but training it. I think we added on trainer to her piece, and the job, again, not saying this is how much money she made, but if you looked up the job she was somewhat doing, I think it was in like the $50,000-$60,000 bracket. Once we added trainer to it, when you looked up that same job, it was $102K a year. So again, you don't have to always run and build a business for yourself or anything that way. Again, make up your lifestyle as a personal brand. It is about what you believe in. I call myself a social entrepreneur because I need people, honestly, to get their shit together. What are you doing? What do you do? How do you do it? How do you want to show up? Period. That's what people want to know. What do you believe in? What has happened to you? How did you make it through it? You know what I mean? So I get it. I can tell you this. I had the PR person. It's tons of celebrities that I can tell you I work with doing the stuff. But for me, like I said before, spiritually, which I wrote a book about it, I spiritually couldn't, I just couldn't do it. My spirit wasn't in it. I knew it was something more. And again, I had to be honest and was like, I was afraid of saying personal development. I was afraid of saying, I'm going to help you with your personal development. I was. And for a long time, it took me forever to find the personal branding strategist for it to be like, ding, ding, ding. This is the thing. This is the thing that makes sense. Speaking of it, my daughter just took some makeup and just drew it all across the wall. So today, for today only, if you are looking for a baby, half off, it is on sale. I don't know the original price, but today it is half off. Listen, again, let me go ahead and jump off this podcast. I just really, like I said, wanted to do, again, I'm trying to be more consistent, a daily podcast. And again, my friend had just encouraged me so much after listening to her story and how she still showed up and she's still shifting in the midst of this huge life crisis, how she's still showing up, she's still shifting. So if anything, if you don't get anything from this, out of me venting, me trying to sell my baby and everything else, right? Is whatever it is that you want to do. If you don't feel happy by it, find someone you can talk it out. I don't care if you got to give them pictures, graphs, stickers, send a dove. I mean, I don't know what you have to do, but you have to get clear, because again, I know how it feels to show up, to do all the stuff, to make the content, to do this stuff, and you're like, yo, this is not it. I don't feel it. I kind of feel it. I like this piece, but this isn't the thing. So I'm not saying everything will be perfect, just like a marriage or a relationship, but you have to have some passion towards it. You have to be willing to say, hey, I don't know the whole thing. You know what I mean? I don't know, coach, if I can get you 30, 30 points today on the scoreboard, but hell, I'm going to try to get there. It's something within you that's still pushing, that you want more. So again, I hope you got so much from this podcast. Be sure to visit www.thelondonnicolefirm.com if you're saying, yo, Londyn, I need to do a session with you. And if you're like, yo, Londyn, I got my title together, I just can't make content, we'll get down to what is the best content to make for you. You know what I mean? So are you a great writer? Are you a great talker? You know what I mean? Like, are you really good with talking? You know what I mean? Or are you great with video and pictures? So we'll really break down the best ways to do your content, how we can take it, do batch content, and just really break it apart. So again, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I really appreciate you guys showing up every day and showing me love. I was going to say something else. I completely zoned out. Visit the website, www.makeyourbeautymark.com, because if you want to give me feedback, I would love to hear what you have to say. And if you want to give my audience feedback about transitioning their brand, there we go, I couldn't get it out, be sure to go on the bottom. You can leave me a voice note, and then I'm just going to stick your voice note all up in here, because I know my audience wants to hear from you and they want to hear what you have to say. So again, guys, thank you so much for listening to it, and have to you soon.